Welcome everybody to a new podcast on the channel. My name's Christian Grassi, and the series of this podcast is going to be called The Vent, because every once in a while we just need to get some things off our chest, talk about things that are going on in the world, and just discuss some stories that may have happened to us in our life. I'm excited to bring this series to light. I've been thinking about doing a podcast for a long time, just to talk about things. I'm a very chatty person, and I really do enjoy that. Just some things about the scene so far, or the background here. This is my Baby Yoda mug. It is one of my favorite mugs that I've ever gotten. I'm a big mug guy. And right here is a travel picture from my backpacking travels around the world, which is actually what we're going to be talking about today. I thought it would be super exciting to talk about basically what got me to pull the trigger and go to Europe. So for many of you that don't know, when I was 20 years old, I booked a 30-day backpacking trip to Europe with no prior experience of traveling alone, going outside the country, anything like that. And it was a very intense, crazy experience leading up to the travel. And then once I got there, it opened my mind and my eyes to just so many things that are possible in this world. So what I want to start with today is basically that journey. I was able to travel to 7 different countries, living off what was in my backpack and in my savings account. And there's so many stories and things, that experiences and people that I've met that I just want to talk about and share with you guys and share with myself. So basically what it all started is I was 20. I was, I think, a sophomore in college. And I actually just got out of a long-term relationship. And it gave me this sense of freedom, of new adventure, of just, I wanted to do something for myself as well, you know. And for some reason, I was just attracted to this thought of, why don't I go backpacking? You know, like crazy thought, especially for a 20-year-old with no money in college. And I had money saved up. I continued to save up money. And I went for it. So one day, I'm actually on the phone with my father as he's giving me plane advice, because that man traveled everywhere in the world. And I was able to find a pretty cheap flight deal. I remember sitting in my dorm room in college, and I booked the flight. I booked a round-trip flight at the end of the semester. It would take me into Paris, and I would fly home from Paris. And I was like, oh my God, I just did it. And I needed to book it, because I'm that person, if I put the money down, I'm going to do it. That's just the way that I work. If money's involved, and especially if it's my money involved, I'm not going to waste the experience. So I booked that trip, and I booked it probably, 3 months in advance, because if you book it too late, obviously those flight prices are going to be insane. So I booked it 3 months in advance, and you start doing a lot of research, a lot of research about the places you might want to go to, about the things you have to bring. And luckily, I did have an aunt who did backpack for many years in her 20s, and she was able to give me a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge over the phone about what I have to do, what I have to bring. And that's actually something we're going to talk about, is what did I bring with me for 30 days? Because a lot of people are like, how do you survive with a backpack for 30 days? And there's a lot of planning that goes into it. And actually a lot of luck as well. Luck for the first round, then you start to pick things up. So I'd say college, the months while I was in college, I was super excited, looking at all these places, watching a lot of YouTube videos, reading articles about what to do, what not to do, all that stuff. And the first question I needed to figure out was, how am I going to travel from place to place in these countries? Am I going to take an airplane, take a train, car? Like, what am I going to do? Car, right away, was out the window. I don't want to rent a car. I'm going to be staying in place to place. I don't want to deal with that. And what you'll find out is when you're going throughout Europe, and it's totally different than America, a car is so unnecessary. Living in New York, especially, I feel like a car is very necessary. As I don't live in the city of New York, I live around the area. But a car is super necessary, in my opinion, to get around. And in the United States, I believe it's pretty necessary. But in Europe, their train system is so much more advanced, in my opinion. So I found this thing called the Eurail Pass, which is basically America's Amtrak system, which allows you to hop on this international train that'll take you across borders, and it'll just take you to wherever you want to go. So basically, there was a bunch of different options when I was on the website, and this is where mistake number one comes in. I spent way too much money on this pass. I was a little confused on what to do with the pass, what all the passes meant, and I ended up buying a pass that was a 30-day unlimited pass. It costed just about $500. And that might sound like a lot of money for a train pass, and it was a lot of money, but it was also relatively cheap for the amount of travel that I did. So basically what the pass was, it allowed me to travel unlimited times on these trains for 30 days. Basically meaning I could get on the train every single day if I wanted to. Now let me remind you, these are international trains, so you're not going to be taking this train from like rural to downtown, you know what I mean? You're not going to be taking it to farms to downtown. You're going to be taking this train from Paris to Budapest. You know, that's how you're going to take these trains. And I didn't realize that at the time. And the reason that I'm saying I overpaid and kind of wasted it, as I say, in the entire 30-day backpacking trip, I probably got on the train 7 times. And there were passes that allowed you to travel 7 times in a month, and they were like $200. So I bit the bullet on that one and overpaid a little bit, but it's okay. You know, that's why we're talking about this. That's why we're venting these things. Just kind of reflect and talk about what went on. So I ended up getting that pass, and fast forward to the end of college that semester, and I go back home. And I have about a week or two until the trip actually happens, and I am pumped. I'm super excited, not nervous at all. Excuse me while I take a drink. I'm not nervous at all for this thing, and my backpack just came in. And here's mistake number 2. I ordered like one of the cheapest looking but nice looking backpacks off of Amazon. I don't know, they looked nice. It had like this military kind of vibe, kind of like backpacker adventure vibe, and I was like, yeah, let me do that one. Such a mistake. The most important thing while traveling, in my opinion, backpacking, any kind of travel, is your freaking backpack, man. You got to think about everything you own is going to be in this bag. All of that is going to be on your back. And the most important thing to remember while traveling and doing all these adventures is you need to keep yourself healthy. If you don't keep yourself healthy, how do you expect to do all these experiences, to move day by day? You know, when we're at home and we're sedentary, it's very easy to kind of go through the motions. But when you're traveling and you have a limited amount of time, or you have a limited amount of time in one place, you want to be 100% as much as you can. So the next backpacking trip that I do, and hopefully it comes this summer or next summer with the whole pandemic going on, is I'm going to invest in, I guarantee you, the most expensive backpack on Amazon. I want the most comfortable back-aiding backpack on the market. It is so important. The backpack that I had was just a large sack, basically. There was no compartments. There was nothing. And basically, every time I repacked it, because you would go to these hostels and you would take all your stuff out and you put them in a locker, you would just stuff it back in. And it was so bad for my back. The weight distribution was terrible. And actually, by the end of the trip, I was having major back problems. So, with that being said, the backpack, what did I take? You know, what did I take for 30 days? And this is where it becomes super interesting, because mistakes were also made here. And you're going to find that along the way, there's a ton of mistakes that go on. But, you know, if I never did those mistakes, I would never learn from it. So, what did I take? Basically, clothes-wise, I took about 5 pairs of clothes, 5 to 7 t-shirts, 5 to 7 boxers, and 5 to 7 socks, right? Those are the main 3 that you need. T-shirts, socks, underwear. The next, basically was I took a pair of jeans, I took about 2 pairs of shorts, 2 or 3 pairs of shorts, a sweatshirt, and I believe a light jacket. Because it was the summer, but the light jacket was for rain, and I don't even remember if I took a light jacket. You could swap that light jacket for maybe another pair of pants. I did take a pair of sweatpants, just in case. So, all that right there, you're either sitting there thinking, damn, that's a lot of clothes, or that's not a lot of clothes. And in my opinion, it's a good amount of clothes. You realize in your normal life, if you look at it, there's only about a week's worth of clothes that you actually wear. And you have all these other pieces of attire that kind of just get left by the wayside. So that's what I took with me. And what I also took is I took my laptop. I took this guy. And that was a monumental mistake. I expected myself to be editing the trip while I was going there. And I did once. But other than that, I was kind of just going with the experience and the flow of the trip. And this guy, even though it looks light, after days of carrying it, it weighs a ton. I also took a second pair of shoes. I took a pair of Sperry's, which is definitely the biggest mistake of the trip. There's no need for the pair of Sperry's. I was told by my aunt to bring maybe an extra pair of shoes, like if you go out to a nice dinner or something. And I did do that, but I just didn't ever see the need to wear those shoes. I wore them once while I was actually washing my other pair of shoes. So that was just a major space. It took up so much space and it was so heavy. And then other things that I took basically were like a pair of sunglasses. I had a hat. I had my passport. Plastic bags are huge so that you can separate your laundry in your bag, as well as a pillowcase, because sometimes hostels don't give you pillowcases. Yep. So that came in handy, and just some basic like shower necessities. You know, flip-flops. Gotta bring flip-flops because those showers are gross. Some of them are gross, but also there's a lot of people who go in and out of hostels. You don't want any feet things going on. So basically, yeah, that's what I fit in the bag. And I packed the bag, and I'm like, holy crap. And it was funny. The days before the trip, I actually walked around the house with the backpack on it. I was like, well, this is going to be perfectly fine. It wasn't. And yeah, so basically, and how we're going to wrap up today's episode is we're actually going to get to the plane. So I'd say it's about the night before, right? The night before we're about to go. And I had this basic plan of where I was going to go in Europe, how I was going to go to Paris, and then I was going to go down to Spain, and then take Spain all the way up to like Switzerland, go across Italy, and then come back to Paris. That didn't happen at all. And you'll find out, especially when traveling and backpacking, make a plan originally, but be super open to moving that plan around, right? Plans when you're traveling should not be that structured, especially when it's this kind of travel. If you're going to a hotel, maybe you structure it a little bit more. But when you're moving around, you want that fluidity. You want to be able to move or change things without any bad repercussions. So basically, it's the night before. I have this basic plan where I'm doing, and I get this immense feeling of anxiety, which was crazy because growing up, and even to this day, I really don't get anxiety. Basically at all. Very little maybe in some situations, but I never get anxious. And I remember I couldn't sleep at all. I had like just, oh my God, like what if something bad happens? What am I going to do? Like I've never been outside the country before at that point. And I've also never been on a vacation alone at that point. And I'm just going. Also, I don't know any of the language. I know maybe a couple words in each language. Maybe, definitely not in the Czech Republic. That was a nightmare. But I don't know the words. So I'm having this immense pressure of anxiety. I'm like, oh my God, and I'm having second thoughts and everything like that. And I'm finally able to rest my head down and fall asleep. Get about 6 hours of sleep. And the funniest thing is we're about to go. I want to get to the airport early, right? Usually you get to the airport 2 to 3 hours early for your flight, unless you're crazy. And I wanted to make sure we got there maybe 3.5 hours early. I remember my father at the time, we were trying to figure out what phone plan I could get to have international service because I used like Straight Talk from Walmart at one point. That's what I was using, and they didn't have international service. He gets this tip off that Sprint has this international service if you sign up for like $30 a month. And I'm like, yeah, sure. Are we going to have enough time? And he's like, yeah. We'll have plenty of time. And I remember we go to the Sprint store. It's about 5 hours, maybe 5 hours, 4 or 5 hours till I had to be at the airport. No, till my flight took off. Airport was about 30, 40 minutes away. We're at this Sprint store for maybe 2.5 to 3 hours. It was the most anxious feeling besides that night I've ever had. Thought I was going to miss the flight. These Sprint guys didn't know what they were doing. Nothing was working. Terrible day. I'm in this Sprint store losing my mind. My backpack is packed, sitting at home. We're like, oh my God, I'm going to miss this flight because I can't leave now without a phone. You know what I mean? Like, at least the other one I could use on Wi-Fi or something. This guy has my phone and he's doing this guy's like 80 years old. He probably has a flip phone. Doesn't know what he's doing. Fast forward. They finally get my phone set, and the flight is leaving in about 2.5 hours at this point, and we still need to drive to the airport. So my father, we drive back to my house, drive to the airport. I get there with like maybe an hour 45. Yeah, about an hour 45 till the flight's taken off, and I'm sweating, because I'm like, I can't miss this flight. If I miss this flight, I'm done. You know how much a flight to Europe cost the day before? It's like $1,000. So I'm freaking out. I get into Westchester Airport because I have a connection in North Carolina that's going to then take me to Paris. And I get in there. I see this long line at TSA. I'm like, oh man, I'm done. I get on the line. That was the quickest TSA line I've ever been on. It was 20 minutes in and out. I was through the gate. And I was like, wow. And I'm sitting there. Now I got an international phone plan. I got my backpack sitting with me, and I'm sitting in the airport, and I'm waiting for my flight. And I just felt this feeling of relief. Like, wow, we're about to do this. This is insane. I just sat there and then waited for the flight attendant to call the flight and for everyone to board. And basically, that's where we're going to start or stop with today. That's going to be episode 1, basically. And then in the next episode, continuing the travel situation, we're going to talk about getting there and what day 1 was like. And day 1 was an absolute nightmare. But I'm super excited to start telling these stories, especially since travel right now is kind of restricted. I just have so many of these incredible stories that I want to share, like one in a million chance moments that only happen when you're doing something like this. So if you did enjoy the podcast, I really do appreciate you sticking around. For YouTube, you'll see the full visual version. If you want just the audio version, that's going to be over on SoundCloud. And I really do appreciate you guys listening in. I hope you enjoyed the stories. Any questions or comments, leave them down below. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Take care.